It's so great to have my one-time fellow New Yorker and friend, Kevin Kwan, join us for a brief chat. Kevin, welcome.
Hi, it's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me today.
No, thank you. Kevin, you are, of course, the author of the bestseller, Crazy Rich Asians, on which the blockbuster film of the same name was based. Why do you think your book, Crazy Rich Asians, and of course the film, caught on so much with people, and not just Asians and Asian Americans, but people all across the United States and elsewhere? What captured people's imaginations?
The world was ready, and I think what really connects it to people is that ultimately every story is universal. My story is a story about family. It's about love. It's about relationship. It's about kinship. And no matter what culture you live in, no matter what country you live in, people have those same shared values. And that's what's resonated. That's why I always say, I encourage all young creative people, tell your story, because the more specific you make it, believe it or not, the more it will resonate in a very universal way. People want diverse stories. People want to learn about other cultures. We have always been a curious world.
There's another part, I think, sadly, of Asian America, which is still a story of poverty, of inequality, of lack of access, and a need for more civic engagement by Asian Americans. How can we help get their stories out? How can they get their stories out? And how do we get them more engaged? I know you've done some amazing work in that area, Kevin.
Thank you so much for highlighting this. My book is called Crazy Rich Asians, but it also features many crazy poor Asians. Rachel Chu, my heroine, comes from a single mother immigrant family. Her mother brought her over here when she was a baby. I hope I'm not giving it away, too many spoilers, but 8 years down the line, you're on your own. But I wanted to tell her story of a woman who struggled and left China, and came to America and had to work in restaurants across America to make ends meet and support her daughter. And yes, they are a success story, but just along with that success story, there are so many others who are still very, very much struggling. New York City, I believe, has a huge poverty problem with Asian immigrants, or even Asians who have been in the United States and in New York for generations. So this is not a problem that is new, and it needs to be addressed. And I think so much of that really depends on civic engagement, and really getting involved on a local level in city government, in politics, not just in voting, but in volunteering, in, helping your neighbor and seeing what needs to be done in your school district, in your community. There is a new generation of young Asians who are engaged and activists in a way never before. And it makes me so hopeful and so proud to see these people come out. So there is power in the community, but the community has to harness that power and use it.
One of my messages is always, civic engagement doesn't stop after the election day. Right? What are the things Asian Americans can be doing to stay involved and informed?
I have seen massive change, and I think I've actually been a beneficiary of that. I really feel like, Asians came out in record numbers to support my movie, Crazy Rich Asians, and I remember the weekend before it opened, the studio, Warner Brothers, everyone was just so nervous. For us as producers, the goal was just to not bomb at the box office. We just didn't want to be a bomb, because we if we bomb, then, Hollywood would not take a risk on another, Asian focused movie for another, 20 years, 30 years. This is our only shot, but I really had hope. The support even surprised me, I have to say, the level of support, the families that came out. I heard so many stories from Asian friends who say, my parents haven't been in the movies in 3 decades. And they went to the cinema and watched Crazy Rich Asians, and they brought my grandparents, and, there were 3 generations of people supporting the movie. And guess what? Hollywood noticed, the success and the box office numbers was inevitable. And I think it really helped propel forward all these new projects, TV shows, other movies, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to sort of see that dam being broken. But we're only really at the beginning.
How do we at the Asian American Federation or an individual get out that story of someone who's not necessarily a crazy rich Asian?
I think it begins with telling your own story and being proud of it. I'll tell you a story. I remember when I was a teenager, growing up in Texas, it was a rough place to to grow up. I was one of 3 Asians in my entire high school, I think. But I remember one day my parents and I were invited to a party, a gathering, and someone asked my father just a very simple question, like, how did you first meet Mrs. Kwan, your wife? And I, being a typical teenager, I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh God, please don't talk. Please don't talk. And my dad just started telling his story. And, we're at a party. We're the only Asian family. People were riveted. The room stopped. Everyone was listening to his simple story of growing up in Singapore, how he met with his wife, how they courted for 5 years. People were fascinated. So I think, we need to be proud of our origin stories, however they may be, and share that. And I think that's what connects people. And that's what, spreads understanding, in the world.
Kevin, thank you for all your time and all your support.
Thank you so much. It's really been an honor. And I want to thank everyone here tonight that's been supporting the Asian American Federation. Thank you for the work that you do. It's really important.